Hello, welcome back to another episode of Mad Times with Madison. Again, I'd like to apologize that the To Sum It Ups have been extremely late. I have 2 queued up as we speak, so you'll get one. If you're a subscriber, you'll get one tomorrow, and then you'll get another one on Friday, and then I'm hopefully going to be all caught up. I'm trying to get like a really good backlog going, because I sort of blew through it when we switched over just to sort of catch up, so I don't really have any researched cases sitting on the back burner right now, which I usually am used to. So that's my bad. And the holidays just snuck up on me, but I'm done Christmas shopping as of today. Well, probably like yesterday. So it's the end of November right now. So I am done. So I will have my life back. Hopefully. I'm going to try and get on track here. Also, if you have ever wanted me to do what you think is like a really long case, like a famous one, anything like that, let me know what one you would like me to do, because I am getting tonsil surgery at the end of January. So I'm going to need to have like a big bulk of recordings ready to go for you, because I don't know how long that will put me out of commission for. They're going to try and do like a laser resurfacing, which doesn't take as long, but if they do a full tonsillectomy when they get in there, that I hear is terrible and it takes forever to heal from it. So I would like to have a really large batch for you, and the easiest way for me to do that is to do like a multiple parter. So if there has ever been one that seems very long that you would like me to do, please let me know. And that is a perfect segue into the case I'm doing today, which I'm 99% sure is going to be a 2-parter. It might be 2 short parts. I don't think they'll be extremely short, but I am redoing, I should say. I asked my Patreons what they thought about me redoing some of my older cases, and this is one of the cases that I was most proud of researching at the time, but the recording of it went so wrong because only one of our microphones was working, but we didn't know that until I edited it. So it was one of our worst sounding episodes, but I think it was one of the better ones that we had at the time. So I am going to be redoing the murder of Meredith Kercher and the trial of Amanda Knox this week and probably next week. If you have never heard of this, I don't even know what to say, because you just have to have heard of this before. The trial of Amanda Knox was insanely, I don't want to say popular, it's not the right word, but you couldn't go somewhere without seeing it. So I think I will jump in. I think that's all I really had to say. So yeah, part 1 today. If you are a subscriber on Apple or a Patreon, those words did not want to come out of my mouth, you will also get part 2 today. If you're listening to this, it should be available for you today. If you're not a subscriber, totally fine. Part 2 will be your episode next week. And then for my patrons, is it patrons or Patreons? I don't know. What is the plural? For my subscribers, you're going to have a To Sum It Up tomorrow and then a To Sum It Up on Friday. And then that's it. I'm also thinking of switching the bonus episodes from Fridays to Monday. Let me know what you think about that. There really is no difference to me, I guess. Monday works for me when I get behind like this, because I can do it over the weekend. Whereas on Friday, I'm usually very busy during the week with like work and stuff. It's much harder for me to squeeze something in like that, but it really doesn't matter to me. But if you would prefer to have like a bonus episode at the beginning of the week to get you to Wednesday, let me know. Because I don't listen to podcasts over the weekend. I really don't. So a Friday podcast would do me no good. But having something to listen to on like a Monday morning to get me back into the week would be great. Because I don't think I listen to any podcasts except for Smartlist that upload on Mondays. So the beginning of the week is always like very empty and boring until like the middle of the week podcasts start uploading, and then I have something to listen to on my lunch break for the rest of the week. Maybe this is a me problem. I don't know. Let me know what you think. So part 1 of Amanda Knox, I'm going to be talking about mostly the murder of Meredith Kercher, the background, the beginning of like the interrogations and things. And then part 2 will focus on the trials and everything like that, because there is nothing easy about this, honestly. So, Meredith Susanna Cara Kercher was born December 18th, 1985 in Southwark, South London. Her friends and family called her Mez. She studied European politics and Italian at the University of Leeds. She had loved the language and culture of Italy and actually spent a summer living with a family member in South Italy when she was 15, which sounds amazing. Italy, I don't want to say I don't have any desire to visit Italy, except like the Amalfi Coast. To me, I would die to go there. Anyway, she worked as a bartender and a tour guide while in college, and she even made a cameo in a music video for like some artist at the time around there. Also, a lot of this information comes from the 2016 Netflix documentary that they did about this case. And I don't want to say they did it about it, because it was the people involved were involved in the documentary. I can't record at night in my room alone, because this is what happens. I'm stumbling over all of my words for absolutely no reason. I prefer to do this in the morning, but I have run out of time, like I have said. So she's in a music video. She's just like thriving, living life. In October of 2007, she attended the University of Perugia. Students described her as caring, witty, and intelligent. Her father would go on to say about her, she went to ballet, and in her teens she did karate. At school she loved reading. She wrote poetry and stories. She was always good company, and her sense of humor always had us and others laughing. The sense of the ridiculous stayed with her. She had such a life and vitality and made friends wherever she went. Meredith really enjoyed Halloween. As a youngster, she would make costumes from like garbage bags. She would make jack-o'-lanterns. Like, she was just very about the season. He said it was ironic and tragic that she would die so terribly only one day after Halloween eventually. So, getting to that, November 1st was a public holiday where they were. Meredith had dinner with 3 English women at one of their homes and left with one of her friends around 8:45 p.m. That was the last time that Meredith Kercher was seen alive. All of her roommates and her neighbors were gone for the night. The next afternoon, her body was found by her roommate and local police. After her roommate called the police entered the apartment and knocked down Meredith's locked bedroom door. They found Meredith's body under her duvet covered in blood. She was naked except for her t-shirt, which was pulled up to her shoulders. So for all intents and purposes, she's naked, because all that she had on was her t-shirt, and it wasn't even covering any of her parts. It was concluded that someone stabbed her neck with a knife. 2 credit cards, 300 euros, and her house keys were all missing. She also had 2 phones that were missing, but they did end up finding those relatively quickly, about a half a mile from the house that they were staying, because they were like continuously ringing in the bushes where they were left. The autopsy stated her injuries consisted of 16 bruises and 7 cuts, which included bruises and cuts on the palm of her hands, which we all know are signs of defensive wounds, so she had put up a fight with whoever did this to her. There was evidence of sexual assault on her. Her funeral was on December 14th, 2007, at the Croydon Parish Church, and more than 300 people attended. She also received her degree that she would have earned in 2009. 5 years after the murder, the city of Perugia and the University for Foreigners with the Italian Embassy in London instituted a scholarship fund in her memory. So that is who Meredith was, about Meredith, and then what happened to her. Okay, so Amanda Knox was born on July 9th, 1987, in Seattle, Washington, to Etta and Kurt. Her parents divorced when she was very young. She has 1 full sister and 2 stepsisters. There really isn't anything noteworthy about her before the chaos. In 2005, she graduated Seattle Preparatory High School and went on to go to college at the University of Washington to study linguistics, which is basically language and its structure, like hooked on phonics, but more official. In the documentary that I was talking about, the Netflix one from 2016, she describes herself as quirky and weird, but she said she was okay with that. She was her own person, but she was like, she knew she was going to find her place eventually. Like, she wasn't very worried about being like the weird, quirky kid, because we all know now as adults, if you're not an adult, listen up. We all know you do eventually find your place. You find your people. You live a great life. For most people, anyway. Friends in college described Amanda as kind and hardworking. She worked several jobs to pay her tuition, which is great for her because I am not paying mine. I also kind of hope she didn't pay hers either. And also, I won't be paying on principle because what a terrible system that we were thrown into that, like, made it seem, if you're, like, a millennial like me, it was, like, presented as, like, the only option to you. Like, you just got student loans when you went to college. Otherwise, you were going to end up living in a dirt shack. But also, I won't be paying it because I am part of student loan forgiveness, and my payment is $0 anyway, so whatever. I'm very, very bitter about student loans. Anyway, she threw parties like a normal college kid. She made the dean's list. She was like a very normal, thriving, hardworking college student. She said she was kind of behind in college socially, so she thought maybe getting out of her comfort zone would sort of like make her an adult. Like she didn't feel like she had quite crossed over to that next phase of life yet. She just wasn't there socially. She wasn't out and about yet. So she was like, maybe if I do something totally crazy, it will like thrust me into that next part of life. And she loves the history of Italy, the art, the ruins, the vineyards, and she thought she was going to find herself in Italy. As soon as like this idea popped into her head, she was like, this is where everything is going to happen for me. Which, hindsight's 2020. So, since she was studying linguistics, she decided to spend a year learning in Perugia, Italy, at the University for Foreigners. She was only 20 years old at the time. She spent the first couple weeks exploring the city. She was happy. She lived with these Italian women and a British woman, which we know is Meredith Kercher. They lived in a gorgeous villa overlooking the valley. And if you have ever watched the doc, or if you have looked up this case where they lived, it really was very gorgeous. While in Italy, she roomed with Meredith Kercher, a 21-year-old student from London who was also studying linguistics. Amanda had only been friends with Meredith for a few weeks. So it is not like they were like long-term best friends who did this together. They like met and lived together. That was it. Soon after they arrived in Italy, they decided to go to a concert together. Amanda met 23-year-old native Raphael Solicito there. She was very charmed by Raphael, and he was very shy, and he was very charmed by her. They were like kindred spirits. I believe they're just, I don't want to call them weird because like they just weren't, but they were just like very shy, reserved type of people. So they just sort of like clicked instantly. And they were only together a week before everything that happens to Amanda happened. They spent every day together, taking pictures, going shopping, smoking pot, making love. Really had the shaping to be a great summer. This is like something that you write about. We all know it does not end up that way. But up to now, like, does that not sound amazing? A gorgeous home, fun roommates, a local Italian boyfriend. In your 20, you're like arguably the hottest you have ever been and perhaps ever will be. Actually, I don't believe that. I believe my hottest is yet to come. So I won't judge anyone else. But you're 20, you're in a gorgeous Italian city. This is Liz McGuire. This is Liz McGuire movie without Mrs. Ungermeyer. But like I said, that doesn't last for long. Things come crashing down hard and fast. On November 1st, 2007, Amanda was supposed to work a shift at the pub she worked at, Les Chic. She was hired at Les Chic because they thought she might bring in business. Being like the beautiful blonde American girl, the pub was new. So they were just sort of trying to like do what they could to get their name out there. And at the time, what better way to do that than having like a hot American blonde bartender? Just probably, honestly, it would work. If you do it in the reverse, if your small town gets like a new bar and you get like a hot British bartender, people are going to be going there. They were watching Amelie at Raphael's house. Her boss, Patrick Lumumba, sent her a text. I'm sorry, I just spelled so many things wrong in my notes that it was hard to ignore because it's so funny. They're watching Amelie at Raphael's. Her boss, Patrick Lumumba, texted her that like she wasn't needed at work that night. Like they weren't busy. There was no point for her to walk all the way over to work for probably no money. So Amanda tells Raphael, I don't have to work, so like I can stay here. They made dinner. She read him a German Harry Potter book. She said they just laid in bed talking, kissing, making love, and then she spent the night there. The next day, Amanda returns to her apartment around noon. When she gets there, she finds the front door wide open, which is weird. Obviously, that's a jarring thing to see, but she did say later that their front door had like a very large problem latching. So while it is weird, it's not out of the ordinary enough that she would have thought something was immediately wrong. Like if I like come home and the door is wide open, I won't even go inside. There is something danger is afoot in there. So she's like, weird, but not too weird. She heads to the bathroom. She sees like small drops of blood in the sink. She doesn't think anything of it because they're just like very small. So then she took a shower, but when she got out of the shower, she noticed like a larger splotch of blood on the bath mat, which she thought maybe someone had just cut themselves. This is a house full of women. If you have ever cut your leg while shaving, the aftermath is jarring, no matter how small. So she's like not insanely worried yet. She then looks over into the toilet and she saw someone had like left poop in there. So now she calls Raphael, which is just so funny to me that despite all the weirdness, the door is wide open, there's like little splotches of blood everywhere, that she can ignore. A toilet full of like unclaimed poop? Absolutely not. She calls Raphael. She's like, something weird is going on. I need you to come over here. Raphael said that he was shocked that Amanda was able to shower in her home with no anxiety. He said it just looked terrible. Like the door was open. You could tell that like bedroom windows had been broken. Like a couple of the exterior windows you could tell had been shattered. Meredith's bedroom door was locked, which is weird. He said the scene was just sort of like unnerving and he didn't understand what took her so long to feel unnerved. She calls Meredith. Meredith doesn't answer. She knocks on her door a bunch of times. She calls their third roommate, Philomena, to tell her about the blood and her windows being broken. And then she calls her mom, and her mom tells her to call the police. Because moms are smart. She's like, you need to quit calling all these weird people. You need to immediately call the police and like find out what's going on. And she had already had Raphael try and kick down Meredith's door, and it didn't work. He couldn't do it. So he had also already called the police. The police arrive, except they're not actually police. They are postal police officers used to investigate postal crimes. They're not used to investigating murders, house break-ins, nothing of the sort. We also have a postal inspection service, which is so weird. I have never heard of it before. But imagine your home being in disarray. Your roommate is missing. No one's answering the phone. And you call the police and the post office shows up. I feel like it would look like that Spider-Man meme where they're all just standing there pointing at each other. Like we would just be in the front yard staring at each other. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I would want you to look at this, but they don't know how to look at it. Just so that's how this starts. The postal police show up. So despite having like no experience at all, they advance with the scene anyway. And eventually the actual police do arrive. But like the postal police have already been all up in this business. The police kick down Meredith's bedroom door. Like I said at the beginning, we all know that Meredith's body was found nude under her duvet in her bedroom. Her throat had a very deep wound. There was blood everywhere. They found Meredith's body on the floor, wrapped in a duvet that was drenched in blood. Meredith's body was covered, so she was covered with the duvet even though her body was found naked. The prosecutor said this was not normal for a male criminal. That was a very female criminal, like MO, covering the body, which isn't necessarily a girl criminal thing. More, that is usually what happens with someone who is familiar. At least when we have seen it, it usually means whoever did this knew that person and they couldn't stand to look at it longer than they had to, which is maybe why they also associate it with girls. Maybe they're thinking that women are like too emotional or like not able to look at the aftermath of what they've done. Either way, they are already immediately thinking that this crime was committed by a woman because of the fact that Meredith's body was covered. But there are like hundreds of reasons why crimes happen the way they do. Maybe they were trying to hide Meredith's body. It could be anything. But to them, they're like, well, that means a girl did it. The prosecutor also says nothing had been stolen, which is weird because in the beginning it was said that there were several things stolen. They had mentioned the 300 euros being stolen, her house keys are missing, her phones were gone. So it's weird for the prosecutor to say that this wasn't a break-in when it clearly could have been because her stuff was missing. You are going to see like a lot of weird shit happening in this case. That is not the end. That is just the tip of the iceberg of weird shit that's going to happen. They said that there was no evidence of someone like climbing over the wall to get to like where they lived. So they had concluded this was a very staged break-in. Like someone who like perhaps lived here, who was a girl, used their key to get into the house, messed up a bunch of stuff, broke a couple windows, committed the crime, and then left. They don't think this was a break-in. They think it was like a staged break-in. They were begging the media to have decency when they were taking Meredith's body out of the home because this was madness. The media was madness with this case. Meredith's mom asked to see her body. She was completely silent. She made a gesture and then asked if she could kiss her. And then Meredith's body was taken away. Meanwhile, Amanda and Raphael were outside kissing while the police are inside the home. Like, as this is actively, like, as Meredith's body is there, I think she was still in there. Like, the very initial police call. They called the police, they wait outside. They're just standing outside, kissing. And you can see this in the documentary. You can see it. I'll post a picture of it when I do the Instagram post. You can see this for yourself. They just look like those weird middle schoolers who are, like, doing a front hug and kissing nonstop. Amanda and Raphael were immediately taken to the police station and were interrogated on and off for 5 days. The next day, after the murder, they had Amanda go back to the home, and they had her looking in the knife drawer to see if any of the knives were missing. And she said this is just sort of when she lost it. She said it was just all starting to hit her, like, that this was an actual real thing that happened, that, like, she now had to deal with. Like, her roommate was murdered, and they don't know why, by who. They have no. So she's, like, now she's starting to panic. The prosecutor on this case, Giuliani, however, thought this made her look guilty, like she couldn't handle the guilt. So to him, she's staring at the weapons she used to kill Meredith, and she's starting to lose her mind because it's like reminding her that she stabbed Meredith with these knives. That's what he's thinking. Nick Pisa in the doc, he's very arrogant. I do not like him at all. He was waiting outside the pathologist lab for the autopsy reports. He's talking about what good Italian he speaks. And the pathologist probably felt important talking to a British reporter because they probably thought he was someone important, someone of like higher up nature. He thinks very highly of himself when in reality he's a nobody. He's just a reporter trying to get his hands on the autopsy reports first. He's nobody. He compared seeing his name on the front page of the paper talking about a terrible murder of this young woman. He compared it to sex. If you're wondering like what a great person he is. So, there were traces of male DNA in her body. There were also little nicks on her chin, like little knife marks. Like she may have been taunted or tortured, which is how they come to this conclusion that they'll talk about, that it must have been some like group sex crime. This must have been like a sex game gone wrong. The police then wiretap Amanda and Raphael's phones. Amanda has a normal conversation with her friend Brett. It does seem a bit too normal, honestly. You can listen to it. Like Amanda is complaining about how fucked up everything is and how being at the jail is scary. And then her friend just talking about her boyfriend and asking about Raphael and how she's going to go look back and say this was the best year of her life. Which is just something a super innocent or super guilty person would say. For the same reasons of they're not worried about it. Either she's guilty and she thinks she has definitely gotten away with it. She's seen like the investigation happening and she's fine. She's going to go back to living her life. Or she's innocent and she knows she's innocent. So she's believing in the justice system that as much as this sucks and how terrible this was, she's going to be done with like the investigation part soon. She can move on to like grieving her roommate and then like back to her Italian summer. We know that that does not happen. It's still an odd thing to say given the circumstance in defense of the prosecution. It is an odd thing to say at the time. However, her and Raphael are still being interrogated. There was an immense amount of pressure on the police to solve this tragedy as fast as possible. Amanda was essentially their immediate target. If you couldn't tell that I was building it up, they think it was a woman. They think it was a staged break-in with someone who had access to the home. They immediately zeroed in on Amanda. Amanda would later say that there was no interpreter for her. Imagine being accused of murder and you can barely respond because you can barely keep up with the conversation. Her mom straight up encouraged her to flee Italy. She's like, I think you need to get out of there. Like, if you had nothing to do with this, you need to leave because they're not going to give you an easy time. But Amanda decided to stay. She wanted to meet Meredith's family. She wanted to try and do what would appear to be the right thing. She's thinking, I had nothing to do with it. Fleeing is not the answer. It's just going to make me look bad to Meredith's family and to everyone. Honestly, I think I'm going to stay. The police told Raphael that Amanda was a liar and a slut and she didn't care about him. They're feeding him the narrative that will eventually take over about Amanda. They were like, this woman is you're not her only boyfriend. She doesn't even care about you. You're going to risk your life for someone like that. Very fucked up. He said they were aggressive and pushy, and they just were not satisfied with whatever he was telling them. So this is when he kind of flips on Amanda. Raphael breaks down and admits, hey, we slept at my house, but it's totally possible that Amanda left while I was sleeping, did something, and then came back. He says she didn't get there until 1 a.m., all while Amanda's just sitting in the lobby, waiting for him to be done. So Amanda is in a foreign country, being accused of a brutal murder of her roommate in a language she can barely understand, getting thrown under the bus by her boyfriend. She completely breaks down after this, which how can you not? Let me say, her Italian could have been totally fine. She could have had an above average understanding of the language. She could have been fluent. Legal words are completely different. I don't even understand English legal words sometimes. I can't imagine being expected to try and understand legal terms and words in a language that I barely speak. She was set up to fail. They also had a slew of unreliable witnesses. A shop owner had told police that he had saw Amanda and Raphael at his store the morning after the murder, looking frantic in the cleaning aisle, but didn't buy anything and left, which ended up not being true at all. But after hearing that, another rumor started that Amanda made a purchase at the store, bleach specifically, and then Amanda and Raphael were seen outside the cottage with a mop bucket, which also isn't true. Well, it is true that they were seen outside of the cottage, but he had already called 911 about a break-in by the time that person had seen him. So he had already called the police. He wasn't cleaning up evidence. And when the mop was tested, there was no evidence on it. And they just did not scrub the cottage clean with bleach because there was evidence everywhere in there. So it doesn't make sense to bleach the cottage and leave so much behind. It just doesn't make any sense. But they have all these witnesses feeding them this stuff that they're able to spin into something completely different to make mostly Amanda, sometimes Raphael, look kind of guilty. This is when they really start to drill into Amanda. She would also later say the police were very aggressive. She was interrogated by 12 officers, which is an unheard of amount of officers for one 20-year-old girl. They hit her on the back of the head. They would call her a liar, that if she didn't tell the truth, she would never see her family again. She did not have a lawyer present at the time, so she's just going rogue here, trying to understand exactly what's going on, why there are 12 police, probably men, I wanted to say men, and they probably were, in the room with her, screaming at her. They're hitting her on the back of the head, telling her she's lying. Just insane. She doesn't know her rights. She doesn't know what they're saying. There's no one there to defend her or help her understand what's going on. It is also illegal in Italy to interrogate a suspect without an attorney present. So they got this loophole that they were interrogating her as a witness, not a suspect. So she doesn't technically need a lawyer because she's not a suspect, which we all know is a lie. They're definitely interrogating her as a suspect. Also, her interrogation just happened to not be recorded, which every single interrogation in Italy is recorded, I think it said. So what are the odds of that? Just a really terrible, stressful environment. Unfortunately, this isn't insanely out of the ordinary. Maybe this one is a little more aggressive than we have seen, but you see phases of this all the time. I mean, look at the West Memphis 3. You see interrogations that are just probably illegal, that lead people to say things that they don't mean because they're being essentially tortured, trapped, whatever, in these interrogation rooms. So it sucks, but we unfortunately see it all the time. So they take her phone, she gives it to them, and she had sent a return text after her boss told her not to come to work, and it said something along the lines of, "Okay, see you later, have a good night." To us, sounds completely normal. To the police, what it actually said was that she had plans to see him that night. So they're taking "I will see you later" as a literal phrase of "see you later tonight." Which, if you've ever taken a foreign language class or tried to learn a foreign language, you know that some things are interpreted literally or just completely differently. So they're saying, you said you did this, you said you stayed at Raphael's, but you're telling this man on the phone that you're going to see him later that night, but you're not telling us that you saw him, so you're lying. So, under pressure, she says that her boss, Patrick Lumumba, killed Meredith when she was there. She says she literally thought she was remembering this. She said her mind was very messed up at this point. Also, in my opinion, she knows the police are coming for her at this point. They are not backing off of her. I think she can feel it, that like no matter what she does or tells them in regards to like the truth, it's not going to be enough. And now there's this text that translates in a different way than she had intended. So she decided to implicate the other person in the message. This, however, makes her an accessory, obviously, to murder. She said she was there. So after being interrogated, Amanda signs a confession saying she did go back to her apartment that night and was in the next room when Lumumba, her boss at Le Chic, stabbed Meredith to death. Amanda admitted that she only said that about Patrick Lumumba later on because the police kept telling her that they knew that she was there with Patrick. And again, after hours and hours of intense interrogation, no food, no water, no support, she's tired, she folded and repeated back the information that she had been fed for hours. She had said over and over again in these interrogations that she wasn't there, that Patrick wasn't there, and what the police were saying was just not right. So they're saying things like, "We know you were there. We know you met your boss there." And she had said dozens of times, like, that is not true. That's not right. What you're saying is not right. And eventually, she just sort of like not lost her mind, I guess, but she had started to like believe the things that she was hearing were memories. She's like, okay, well, I guess I can see Patrick like in the door of our apartment. Like, I guess maybe I do remember that. She said it was like very dream, like hazy sequences she was remembering, but she was just so exhausted that she decided to tell them that. So on November 6, 2007, the Italian police announced that Meredith's killers had been found and arrested, Amanda, Patrick, and Raphael. They immediately painted this as a sex thing gone wrong. Like I said, they were saying that Meredith had refused to take part in one of Amanda Knox's sex games, so they murdered her. Except Lumumba was at work all night that night, which Amanda knew because she didn't have to go to work because he was working and there wasn't enough for both of them to do. He had several witnesses. He was in no way involved. It was very easy to prove. So, this is a transcript of Amanda Knox's handwritten statement to the police on the evening of November 6th, the day she was arrested. This is verbatim. I did not research this, make it up, anything of the sort. So this is the day she was arrested. She says this is very strange. I know, but really what happened is as confusing to me as it is to everyone else. I've been told there's hard evidence saying that I was at the place of the murder and my friend when it happened. This, I want to confirm, is something that to me, if asked a few days ago, would be impossible. I know that Raphael has placed evidence against me, saying that I was not with him on the night of Meredith's murder, but let me tell you this. In my mind, there are things I remember and things that are confused. My account of the story goes as follows, despite the evidence stacked against me. On Thursday, November 1st, I saw Meredith the last time at my house when she left around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Raphael was with me at that time. We, Raphael and I, stayed at my house for a little while longer, and around 5 in the evening, we left to watch the movie Amelie at his house. After the movie, I received a message from Patrick, for whom I work at Public Chic. He told me in this message that it wasn't necessary for me to come into work the evening because there was no one at my work. Now I remember to have also replied to this message, "See you later, have a good evening." For me, this does not mean that I wanted to meet him immediately, in particular because I said good evening. What happened after, I know, does not match up with what Raphael was saying, but this is what I remember. I told Raphael that I didn't have to work and that I could remain at home for the evening. After that, I believe we relaxed in his room together. Perhaps I checked my email, perhaps I read or studied, or perhaps I made love to Raphael. In fact, I think I did make love with him. However, I admit that this period of time is rather strange because I am not quite sure. I smoked marijuana with him and I might have even fallen asleep. These things I am not sure about, and I know they are important to the case and to help myself, but in reality, I don't think I did much. One thing I do remember is that I took a shower with Raphael. This might explain how we passed the time. In truth, I do not remember exactly what day it was, but I do remember that we had a shower and we washed ourselves for a long time. He cleaned my ears, he dried and combed my hair. One of the things I am sure that definitely happened the night on which Meredith was murdered was that Raphael and I ate fairly late, I think around 11 in the evening, although I can't be sure because I did not look at the clock. After dinner, I noticed there was blood on Raphael's hand, but I was under the impression that it was blood from the fish. After we ate, Raphael washed the dishes, but the pipes under his sink broke and water flooded the floor. Because he didn't have a mop, I said we could clean it up tomorrow because we being Meredith, Laura, Philomena, and I, have a mop at home. I remember it was quite late because we were both very tired, though I can't say the time. The next thing I remember, I was waking up the morning of Friday, November 2nd, around 10 a.m., and I took a plastic bag to take my dirty clothes to go back to my house. It was then that I arrived home alone, and I found the door to my house was wide open, and this all began. In regards to this confession that I made last night, confession is in quotes, I want to make clear that I am very doubtful of the verity of my statements because they were made under the pressure of stress, shock, and extreme exhaustion. Not only was I told I would be arrested and put in jail for 30 years, but I was also hit in the head when I didn't remember a fact correctly. I understand that the police are under a lot of stress, so I understand the treatment I received. However, it was under this pressure and after many hours of confusion that my mind came up with these answers. In my mind, I saw Patrick in flashes of blurred images. I saw him near the basketball court. I saw him at my front door. I saw myself cowering in the kitchen with my hands over my ears because in my head I could hear Meredith screaming. But I've said this many times so as to make myself clear. These things seem unreal to me, like a dream, and I am unsure if they are real things that happened or are just dreams in my head, or are just dreams my head has made to try and answer the questions in my head and the questions I am being asked. But the truth is I am unsure about the truth, and here's why. Number 1. The police have told me that they have hard evidence that places me at the house, my house, at the time of Meredith's murder. I don't know what proof they are talking about, but if this is true, it means I am very confused and my dreams must be real. 2. My boyfriend has claimed that I have said things that I know are not true. I know I told him I didn't have to work that night. I remember that moment very clearly. I also never asked him to lie for me. That is absolutely a lie. What I don't understand is why Raphael, who has been so caring and gentle with me, would lie about this. What does he have to hide? I don't think he killed Meredith, but I do think he is scared like me. He walked into a situation that he has never had to be in, and perhaps he's trying to find a way out by just associating himself with me. Honestly, I understand, because this is a very scary situation. I also know that the police don't believe things of me that I know I can explain, such as 1. I know the police are confused as to why it took me so long to call someone after I found the door to my house open and blood in the bathroom. The truth is, I wasn't sure what to think, but I definitely didn't think the worst, that someone was murdered. I thought a lot of things, mainly that perhaps someone got hurt and left quickly to take care of it. I also thought that maybe one of my roommates was having menstrual problems and hadn't cleaned up. Perhaps I was in shock, but at the time I didn't know what to think, and that is the truth. That is why I talked to Raphael about it in the morning, because I was worried and wanted advice. 2. I also know that the fact that I can't fully recall the events that I claim took place at Raphael's home during the time that Meredith was murdered is incriminating, and I stand by my statements that I had made last night about the events that could have taken place in my home with Patrick, but I want to make it very clear that these events seem more unreal to me than what I said before, that I stayed at Raphael's house. 3. I'm very confused at this time. My head is full of contrasting ideas, and I know I can be frustrating to work with for this reason, but I also want to tell the truth as best as I can. Everything I have said in regards to my involvement in Meredith's death, even though it is contrasting, are the best truth that I have been able to think. There's a section that is illegible. She said, I am trying, I really am, because I am scared for myself. I know I didn't kill Meredith, that's all I know for sure. In these flashbacks that I'm having, I see Patrick as the murderer. But the way the truth feels in my mind, there is no way for me to have known because I don't remember for sure if I was at my house that night. The questions that need answering, at least for now, I'm thinking are: 1. Why did Raphael lie? Or did Raphael lie? Which she is writing. She's writing these to herself, so she's trying to figure out if Raphael lied and why would he lie about her. Why did I think of Patrick? Is the evidence proving my presence at the time, the place of the crime, reliable? If so, what does this say about my memory? Is that reliable? Is there any other evidence condemning Patrick or any other person? Who is the real murderer? This is particularly important because I don't feel I can be used as condemning testimony in this instance. I have a clearer mind than I have had before, but I am still missing parts, which I know is bad for me. But this is the truth. This is what I'm thinking at this time. Please don't yell at me because it only makes me more confused, which doesn't help anyone. I understand how serious the situation is, and as such, I want to give you this information as soon and as clearly as possible. If there are parts that don't make sense, please ask me. I'm doing the best I can, just like you are. Please believe me, at least in that, although I understand if you don't, all I know is that I didn't kill Meredith, and so I have nothing but lies to be afraid of. And that was the end of Amanda's notes. And what we know is she should be afraid. I know she said she has nothing but lies to be afraid of, but I don't think she anticipated what was going to happen after she was arrested. And that is going to be the end of part 1, and I will get into all of that and finish it out in part 2. So thank you for sticking around. If you are a subscriber, like I said, you have part 2 right now, which is like one of my favorite benefits of like subscribing to the podcast that I do, is because once I get to like, not that they're intentional cliffhangers, but there has to be a stopping point to pick back up. And I cannot wait. But it does kind of suck if you're a subscriber because this is your episode next week. So if you don't save it, you only have your bonus episode next week. But if that is your jive, if you like to listen to it all at the same time, you can head right on over to the next episode. If you're on Apple Podcasts, you can see the bonus episodes being uploaded, but you can't listen to them. They have like a paywall. You can do the free trial. You can pay the subscription. I just don't want people to get confused and think that these are all subscriber episodes in the rare case that you are only clicking on subscriber episodes because those are what sounds interesting to you. They are not. Only half of these you have to pay for. The other half will be completely free like normal. Don't worry about it. So I will see you next week. If you're on the Patreon, if you're a subscriber, feel free to listen to part 2 now and discuss with me in the DMs if you would like. And if you're not, I will see you next week for the conclusion of the trial of Amanda Knox. And thank you for sticking around. I hope to see you tomorrow, Friday, next Wednesday, next Friday, hoping to get back on track. And like I said, don't forget to send me some suggestions because I do need to get a good backlog going before my surgery. And thank you so much. Goodbye.